more if you want. That's the chart of the full moon, right? Moon was at 17 degrees and the sun was at 17 degrees. So if you have a look at this chart at the moment, there's a really significant thing playing out, okay? There is the Mars-Sun connection, and then there is the Moon-Pluto connection, and then there is the Jupiter in Libra sitting all on its own over there, okay? And you also notice that especially if you follow the teachings of evolutionary astrology, we'll take into consideration that, you know, the planet that is actually influencing this Jupiter quite a lot, and pardon me, yes, the planet that's ruling Jupiter quite a lot is the Venus, where you are over there, 4 degrees Gemini, okay? And also that the ruling planet of the Saturn archetype is actually the Jupiter. So we have this interesting, I hope everybody's following with me on the chat. Let me know if it needs more clarity, but I hope you're following me. So you've got Pluto and the Moon, okay, and Pluto and the Moon are in the constellation. They're in the framework of Saturn and Capricorn, right? So that was the correlation between those two there. And then you have the Mars-Sun connection in Cancer, and then the connection with Jupiter and Libra. Now, like I said again, Jupiter, the planet Jupiter, is also influencing the Saturn archetype because of Sagittarius. Sagittarius and Jupiter are the same expression. And the Venus expression is, of course, the Libra archetype there. So we've got this interesting dynamic of inner and outer relationship, Venus. We have truth, belief systems, and cosmologies, Sagittarius, Jupiter. The structure of our reality, in other words, the frameworking. So how do we define frameworking? We define it through the process of our laws, our boundaries we choose to implement as a society, the framework that we all, in our individual context within the world, construct our sense of identity through, okay? Right? I hope that makes sense there. And then you have Pluto in Capricorn itself, or the Pluto and Moon archetype, right? Pluto reflects the nature of our evolution, and the Moon correlates to the most conscious sense of identity and security patterns that we have. So there's quite a lot here around our security and our emotional attachments to experiences and like even deeper unconscious security patterns. So conscious security patterns and deep unconscious security patterns are heavily influenced, okay? We're looking at the inner dynamics that we relate to ourselves through. How do we value things, okay? Each of us within our lives and on a personality level, and within our more deeper sort of cosmological level, in other words, as an earth structure, as in the whole entire like collective, we have certain values that we each hold to, and this is what kind of defines our inner relationship to ourselves. So you can see here that there's these conscious, unconscious emotional patterns. You can see here that there's a sense of like our survival, our sense of our values and how we link those with our essential needs. Okay, each of us has essential needs that we then value. Okay, that's the Venus archetype. And now we come to the kind of like the expression of Mars. Mars is the conscious expression of Pluto. It's these instinctual actions, these instinctual movements that represent freedom. It's a birthing process of everything occurring. And when you look at the sun represents this big flashlight. Okay, this huge flashlight that sits in the sky and says, this is where we're seeing the neutrino field flow through. This is the aspect of our framework that is being illuminated with light, right? So you can see here that we have an illumination of our freedom, an illumination of a new direction, an illumination of the sense of exploration that's wanting to be burst forth into a new experience. We're desiring new experiences with each Mars energy, right? And when we look at the Jupiter archetype, we see our truths. individually for us. Okay, we see this process of our cosmology. And the most poetic way that I can really express to us around the nature of what Sagittarius represents is that if you had to take like two people, okay, and you gave them this opportunity to, travel along a road to the same destination, okay, they had to walk to like a hotel, but their paths were different. Person A and person B would get to the end of their journey. They would meet up at the same hotel, but because their paths being different, their experience of the journey is influenced by what their journey, what their path was about. And you can see that there's a diversity in truth, okay, a diversity in what they believe. So in this analogy over here, person A takes this road and the sun shines, and he finds these like people along his journey that choose to want to walk with him for a period of time to keep him company. And he rests over at one of the hotel the places, and he finds that they're interested in offering him free food because he's been traveling for such a long period of time and he's well worn out, and his experience is very supported. He feels accommodated by humanitarian experiences and a deep love for our appreciation to care for one another. Person B goes along his journey, and for the vast majority of the experience, it rains. He finds himself like deeply isolated in the experience because not many people want to be jumping around, walking around, following other people for the sake of it when it's raining. We just, as human beings, we just don't respond to that process. And when he does decide to get to an inn to kind of rest, the hotel is full in that way. And he gets a place to stay that, costs him some money, but he also is in a place that really is, again, just alone, and he gets to the end, and his experience of his humanitarian interaction is different. And that's Sag. That's what Sagittarius is about. That is what the constellation Jupiter or Jupiter represents in your birth chart. It's this process of us recognizing what experiences we've had and how we perceive those things, and then how do we solidify and crystallize a truth. Okay? And what's interesting about Sagittarius, okay, and what's interesting about the Jupiter archetype in its relationship to these Pluto-Moon connections and this Mars-Sun connection over here is that, we've really got ourselves into a state where, as human beings, we develop relationships to things. We develop relationships to life cycles that we experience. We define ourselves through our life cycles. We recognize our sense of identity through the environment that we exist within, and we relate to that. And this is what you can, define as karma. And yet, what's also fascinating about what is really happening for us with this full moon experience is that we're really getting this opportunity to awaken within ourselves conditioning, deep, unconscious, emotional, and psychological attachments and conditioning that we have on ourselves relative to our past experiences that on some deep level hold us back from allowing us the freedom to explore passion that we have within inside of ourselves, that is what the soul is yearning for. This passion, this fire, this creativity, this new step. So with this T-square that's happening over here, with Jupiter being, in my opinion, a focus point, with the moon, Pluto, the sun, and Mars, and Jupiter over here, you've got these conditioning dynamics, okay? You've also got to notice that the moon itself was in a relationship to Pluto that was balsamic. In other words, it was applying. Sorry, it's getting to Pluto. It's applying to Pluto, meaning that it's on a completion cycle in relationship to Pluto. So we know that there's a deep internal process of release, a deep internal process of getting to the deeper core layering of our psychological and emotional attachments to what we have lived in the past, what we have defined ourselves through in the past, what structure, what laws, what governance, what conditioning, and what conditions we have kept, like, allowed ourselves to feel safe within. And when you look at the connection between Mars and the Sun in the Cancer constellation, it's like, how are we trying to burst forward with new direction? How are we looking for a new emotional way of being with ourselves and with others and in our environments that reflects a more authentic sense of who we are? And I think what's really fascinating about this chart is that the nodal axis, right? So you've got the south node over here and the north node over there. The south node is an Aquarius. And the Aquarius constellation or archetype is obviously ruled by Uranus, right? So Uranus and Aquarius and the south node there are deeply, deeply, deeply showing us what the trajectory of our past conditioning and where we're coming from, and what we're trying to access. What are we trying to access with this north node, right? Now, when you look at the ruling planet of Uranus, you actually see it's Mars. So what's fascinating about this Mars Aries energy here is that there is a cardinal energy. There's cardinal sign of Capricorn, cardinal sign of Libra, cardinal sign of Aries, cardinal sign of Cancer. Cardinal reflects change. It reflects the initiation of change. So this whole entire full moon is rooted in this initiation of a new direction, initiation of examining the dynamics of conditioning and laws and regulations and cycles that you've used in the past as a way of emotionally identifying with yourself. Cancer, Sun in Cancer. And how has that provided you with the context of your evolution up until this point in time? How has it provided you with what you have grown into and developed awareness from that has now reached a point and then saying, okay, now we're on a completion cycle. We're ready for new, so we're going to be having, a new moon that's going to be taking place in Leo, right? And we're going to having a full moon that's going to be taking place in Aquarius. So we are going to be having an access to this new moon, full moon experience in the Leo Aquarius axis. And I know that this is part of the solar eclipse as well. So there's a huge emphasis of culmination energy that is also rooted in this process of renewal and revival of something, or actually not renewal and revival, I do apologize, but a deep, deep process of becoming new into something. And I feel that a very big part of it is not really understood by us yet. I feel like it's a blank canvas, and we're allowing ourselves to be released of the experience of the dynamics of the past. We're allowing ourselves to be just, enmeshed in that releasing process, that letting go process, but also at the same time, like breathing deeply into the excitement of the newness, right? It might not necessarily feel like that because, cardinal energy is because the energy is it's changing so much. It's operating and asking and inviting such a new expression that from a psychological perspective regarding the way that our brain operates and the way that we interact with the phenomena of reality, we're going to feel anxiety. We're going to feel feelings of uncertainty. We're going to feel psychological dynamics of doubt, of, like I said, uncertainty. And a lot of the time, that's more rooted in the biology of the body and how it's functioning as this new energy is emerging for us, than that there's something wrong with you. You know what I mean? So, if you find yourself like in this deep process of needing to calm yourself down through medication and stuff, and then you've convinced yourself there's something wrong with you, it's honestly just a neutrino field that's moving through you, that's amplifying the energy. And I think what's also really important to recognize as well, and this is how I opened up today's conversation, was, again, like I said, go look at what just recently happened in Hamburg, in Germany. and the relationship of the G20 summit and what was occurring over there. You know, there was a huge emotional uproar of freedom and expression of people's feelings towards governmental structures, Pluto and Capricorn, Moon conjunct Pluto in a balsamic phase, Mars opposed Pluto conjunct the Sun. You know, Mars opposed Pluto in this connection is so much about feeling in opposition with things. You know, Mars is always going to be pulling us in a certain direction, and Pluto is always going to be saying, no, I like to feel fixated on this. I feel safe in this. And Mars is saying, well, I'm not really interested in safety in that sense. I'm wanting newness. I'm wanting exploration. I'm wanting diversity. I'm wanting openness. I'm wanting freedom. So freedom conjunct the Sun is expression of emotion. And you can see the archetypal expression of the astrology just so beautifully and poetically expressed in this most recent event that took place in Hamburg. And again, you know, it wasn't something that was very it wasn't like a happy, you know, bunnies and rainbows, and it was like a lot of people with strong emotions expressing the way that they feel. And for me personally, I'll just come back to the main screen over here. You know, for me personally, if you had to observe what was happening right now, though, in Hamburg, and how people were feeling towards the G20 summit and what it represents, that's only the beginning. For me personally, I feel like that's only the beginning of what I feel what I think that Saturn's transit through Capricorn is going to bring us. I feel that it's not something that is just happening in little pockets. I feel that there is a lot of emotional expression that is going to develop over a period of time that is not going to be able to be held and contained. And I feel a lot of social unrest. I feel a lot of expression of what is not healthy and what is not correct, and emotional dynamics that have been suppressed and contained and put into boxes. I don't think that this is going to be something that's going to go away. So what I find fascinating, though, is that it's because of social media, because of the way that the internet is at this point in time, that the awareness itself is spreading so much faster. You know, little interactions like that can spread so fast across the planet that allows us to see what their perspective or point of view is that they're trying to illuminate through their protests. And I feel that what is great about that is that we don't necessarily have to have these huge, and also I think it was Mars was opposed Pluto as well. I think it was still approaching the Sun, or maybe even conjunct the Sun. If I'm not entirely exact on the dates, but I am aware that it was around the 4th of July, that there was a huge march in the States regarding people's feelings towards President Trump and stuff. So I can't remember exactly what the date was, but I'd seen a friend that was participating in something like that. And I think that that's another expression. It's like, what is the message? And the opportunity for the internet to provide people with the awareness of what that is about probably gives us a little bit of security and safety in knowing that it doesn't have to be intensely dramatic for there to be attention around what is being brought to the surface. And again, the precursor, not part of me, the precursor, but the whole entire purpose of these energies at the stage is not just like a randomness. You know what I mean? It's like they're deeply awakening human collective. We're deeply awakening the aspects of ourselves, the emotional body. Again, Cancer correlates to the emotional body, you know, our emotions that are rooted in the body relative to our experiences. And there's Jen was showing me yesterday, and I highly encourage everybody to go check that out. Actually, to be honest, I'll maybe even put it in the chat. But there is a film that had been created, and version 2 is being released really, really soon. It was called Emotion. So E-motion, and it talks about the various people and documentary slash movie around the nature of emotions and how that operates in the body. And what I found fascinating was that the Cancer Capricorn archetype is so much about the process of emotion, because time is Capricorn. Capricorn is the reflection, the archetypal reflection in which we get to see emotion, right? And when we understand the interchange between Cancer Capricorn, we notice that when we began this live stream, right, every one of you was in a certain emotional space. You were relating to what I was sharing with you, and we've gone a couple of minutes. I don't know how long we've actually been moving through this video, but that period of time that you began watching this, and again, I use the word period of time because it's something that we all relate to, that time frame and where we are right now has had a sequence of experiences and expressions and things that I've said that have become crystallized. And it's also captured on YouTube. That is the Cancer Capricorn archetype. It's the process of us emotionally relating to each moment and what that means for us, and then how that becomes crystallized. And that's how we actually have imprinting. So for the full moon to be landing, in the Pluto, on top of Pluto, also in opposition to Mars, Sun opposed Mars, everything in relationship to Jupiter and Libra, we're understanding the nature of our emotional dynamics and how those emotional expressions and impacts have developed the cosmology of our truth, in which we have then become, in a sense, aware of ourselves through the reflection in Capricorn. So this whole entire T-square has really brought to the surface, like I said before, the experience of the life cycles of the past and how we are becoming aware of this process, how those limitations, how when we feel stuck, when we feel like we're limited in our experience here, how we can be liberating ourselves. And again, the South Node in Aquarius was what I was moving on to here. How we can liberate ourselves from these dynamics that are, crystallized within the body, and how we're constantly just kind of like purifying and letting, just ripping off whatever is not authentic for us and becoming more experimental in our way, becoming more vibrant in our expression of what we are and who we are. And on a collective level, of course, this is materializing itself in different ways. So yeah, so let's go back to the chart quickly just for a moment. Let's have a look. We've got also this beautiful trine that's occurring with Saturn in Sagittarius. Again, that's the whole entire purpose of the restructuring of our truths. Remember, Saturn's retrograde. So we're going back in time to observe the nature of our past emotional responses to things, and then getting an opportunity to fracture the nature of how they were relative to a different point of view. So we're like literally running parallel to other experiences that have happened before, and observing our reactions to them and changing and adjusting them in accordance with new evolutionary dynamics and cycles that are emerging for us right now that weren't there when Saturn was direct at 22 degrees Sag. So you've got the Saturn in Sagittarius 22 degrees retrograde, and it's trining the North Node in Leo. And of course, the North Node in Leo is ruled by the Sun. So again, there's an active expression. We're looking at the active expression of ourselves. So this is something that's deeply allowing us to be validated through our process. I watched just recently that a lot of people on Facebook are actually beginning to just do live streams in which they're just talking about randomness. They're going out to a party and they've put up a live stream, and then any of their friends and followers are like, they're like, oh, this is the dress I'm going to wear, and people are just commenting like, yeah, I like that dress. I like this dress. And another guy was making pizza. And it was just such an interesting dynamic that is emerging, where our creative process regarding who we are and what we are is becoming so social. And we're looking for new ways to connect. And we're breaking down a lot of this like emotional vulnerability that we could feel when we're exposing ourselves and allowing other people to enter into our homes, when we're just kind of like I said, this guy, it was hilarious. I live in Sweden, so this guy was in Sweden as well, and he was, just kind of had just a table. It wasn't even something fancy or anything. It was just like a table. He had his phone that was just on the side over there, and he was just kind of like, hi guys, this is a Saturday evening, Saturday afternoon evening experience. I'm just kind of chilling here. I'm gonna make some pizza. I've got my beer, and it was such a to the mind, it was such a bizarre thing, but yet to the emotional and the heart, it was like, wow, that's a really cool thing to do, to feel that comfortable in knowing that you could just live stream to whoever you wanted to, your friends group, etc., that you were just like kind of making pizza and this was just what you were doing. And the other person getting ready for going out and kind of just getting, trying on different dresses, and that was funny. So that's another beautiful expression of that North Node in Leo and that trine to Saturn. It's like we're already feeling comfortable in our expression of ourselves, and even expanding some of our truths and vulnerabilities. And with Uranus being in Aries and that completing that trine, as you can see over here, there's the Saturn, there's the North Node, and there's the trine. We're like opening ourselves up to kind of new ways of expression, right? As we're allowing ourselves to become more less vulnerable and more, how we are, I think. And that's a great sign. We've got this yod that's also forming, that was actually forming with the new moon, the full moon, with Saturn and the South Node. There you can see the two yods, and they're actually hitting Mars at this stage. And that's interesting because it's 22 degrees, 22 degrees, and 22 degrees. South Node's 24 though. But that's a very tight yod, and again, this adds a lot of emphasis to what that Mars conjunct Sun was about in Cancer. It was, deeply, deeply, deeply allowing us to break down the structures and the belief systems and the cosmologies. And the trigger point of the boomerang effect was the Pluto moon connection. So I invite everybody to spend some time just reflecting on what this full moon was for you, and how you interacted with it. How did you find yourself, getting into new dynamics, new patterns of behavior, maybe recognizing deep limitations and emotional confrontations, and how that has brought to the surface a lot of stuff that you want to now clear out, debris, So, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to get some water over here and to kind of just come back to the screen. And I'm looking at the chats at the moment. Did everybody resonate a little bit with what I was sharing with you over there? By the way, did you find, what are your thoughts on your experience? Just take a breather there for a second. Just if anybody's interested in wanting to share, right? Emotional confrontations with parents. Absolutely. I mean, if you're karmically in, if your journey is about understanding the conditioning dynamics regarding your parents, or for any of us that have had to process a lot of our feminine and masculine conditioning relative to how we translated what our parents represented to us when we were growing up, you probably would have been able to, or had to deal with that, because Pluto again correlates to those deeper. Like here's the surface. Level 26 underneath the earth is where Pluto exists, going, oh, I'm lurking over here, telling you how these subtle psychological impressions of how you see the world operate, and that's why like, when we deal with past life regression, and we work with understanding the nature of our psyche, we're already accessing the Pluto dynamic within ourselves. So yeah, emotional confrontation with parents. Do you manage to resolve them in a way that was helpful, or did it just become a very kind of like South Node and Aquarius thing, just fragmented and emotions all over the place, not feeling very grounded in that experience? So Summershine was saying, yep, feeling so much what you're saying. That's amazing. Thanks very much, Darius. You were saying, what do I need to do when I want a reading? For anybody that's wanting to have readings with myself, you just come over to my website. That's www.simonforster.com. And you can check out some of my services, or you feel like you can just email me directly. And all the information is actually on my YouTube channel there as well. And yeah, just email directly. I can set it up there as well. Learn your chart. That's always something that I find really, really fascinating to share with people, getting to have these 25 videos of how your chart is set up, and then we have a reading as well. Okay, right, let's see what else. Okay, Amma was asking, question, Pluto now transits natal Mercury. Okay, so I'm assuming Pluto now transits your natal Mercury at 15 degrees. And okay, so you're related to your health or astrological research or both. I'm not really sure what you mean by that, but do you mean that Pluto is transiting your Mercury at this stage? And is there anything that's got to do with your health and stuff? Let's have a look. Okay. Melissa is saying, resolving issues with my ex in a good way, clearing up past crap, and it feels so good about it, looking at issues in a new way, feeling freeing. Amazing. I'm super happy for you. I've noticed a couple of people that have also had to, I mean, this is something that unfortunately also comes with these energies as well. Like, because of a new direction, sometimes we do feel that new direction means an entirely new kind of relationship dynamic to ourselves. And I've seen some people that have also changed their relationship to single, and they've also had to kind of process deep emotions through that attachment as well. Okay, so I would say that when Pluto is transiting your Mercury, or whenever you've got a strong Pluto connection to your Mercury, I would say that your nervous system, from medical astrology, your nervous system is something that will probably have a deep impact with. The reason why it's a nervous system is because Mercury correlates to the transmitting of energy and information relative to the neurons in the brain, to the nerves itself. Aquarius correlates to the nervous system itself, so I would check if there's any aspects being made to your Uranus in your chart. So I would recommend magnesium baths. Those were really important, as well as also getting in touch with at least a high dose of outside energy. In other words, don't spend too much time with technology because it can fry your electrical system quite a lot. So spend some time earthing yourself, just like bare feet, walking around on the ground, right? Just, obbing around trees as an example, just really, really grounding your energy field, because you can be really susceptible to a lot of amplified energy. So Disha is writing, dealing with a lot of insecurities that I know don't apply anymore, but feelings linger. Yeah, completely. Insecurities correlating to Cancer, the archetype Pluto, deeply. When as human beings, you must remember that our biology is set up in a way where the limbic system is all about a survival process. We attach ourselves to things that make us feel secure. And the way in which our lymphatic system, I've forgotten the name of the system now that correlates to, it is, oh my gosh. Let somebody just tell me in the chat quickly again, when we're talking about the pituitary gland, and we're talking about the hypothalamus and the pineal gland. It's a specific system. If it is lymphatic, no, it's not. Anyway, the point was that the limbic system is specifically a correlation. Endocrine, thank you, Sunshine. There we go. Endocrine system. We're dealing with emotional and hormones and the way in which that is forming within the body relative to past experiences. So a lot of the time, the body is really just releasing a lot of the way that we crystallize those within our body. So when we go through an experience of release, we actually go through the way that it crystallized within ourselves anyway. And that being, part of the releasing process. And it's really fantastic. It's like really fascinating, because I was learning a lot about, or reading a lot about shamanic healing. And they were talking about the way in which you begin to purify and cleanse your body of unprocessed emotions. And that a lot of the time, when they're so suppressed that they become unconscious, and you begin to release those emotions through the body again, you actually experience being high, because the endorphins that had to be released in order to suppress the emotions to the point in which you became numbed out need to come through the body again. So you think you're actually like, you get like deeply high through the process of cleansing your body and feeling deeply ungrounded. And you're going through things of, yeah, thanks very much, endocrine system, exactly. When you're processing, you have to go through apathy as well. You know, those types of things, anger, and those are the things that you can actually convince yourself that, you know, you need to give up when you're going through the apathy stage. So yeah, a lot of the time we get through a lot of emotions that are lingering with us, and a lot of insecurities can place because we felt insecure at that time. Okay. So my intentions, Tay was writing, my intentions for this full moon, this moon cycle was understanding how I perceive my past and how those perceptions affect me right now, because I still believe in those perceptions and deeply feel them. Awesome. And that's something that is correlated to time. You know, Cancer Capricorn, again, the process of how we're connected to time and how we emotionally relate to that. Okay, let's see, what else is there? A lot of Becca was writing a lot of emotions for me to do with self-control, adulting, and insecurity about my success in the world. You know, this is something that I want to encourage everybody to. In fact, this has opened up a little small dialogue, and you know, it feels like I should put this in here with this North Node in Leo, and with the upcoming solar eclipse in Leo as well. A lot of the time, guys, it's really important to like spend some time asking yourself, how do you measure success in the world? Why do we measure success in the world? Right? What is the purpose of the measurement of success? And ask yourself also, in terms of measuring success, what are the instruments that you use that allows you to define your success? And you'll find yourself that a lot of the time the measurement for success is sometimes, or not sometimes, but often, something got to do with our own feelings of inadequacy that have been rooted in the past conditionings of our parents responding to us around certain things that they didn't even know they were actually projecting onto us relative to their own inadequacy. Because, you know, we're just emerging. Like, you know, the whole entire purpose of this astrology here is for us to recognize that we're in a deep deconditioning process. You know, Pluto through Capricorn is not this like, let's go out there into the world and establish a new entire... It's not about that at this point in time. We're not there yet. We're still getting in touch with and finding new ways of being liberated from the dynamics of 2,000 years of even more conditioning in our genetics. You know, it goes really deep into that thing. So, you know, it's not a coincidence that we deal with a lot of emotional upheaval and a lot of emotional like uneasiness when we have a Pluto Moon connection, because it's so much about the deepest solidified emotional imprinting within our DNA, you know. And so I invite you to look at those ways of understanding how you measure yourself, you know, and who are you proving yourself to, and why do you need to prove yourself? There are certain situations and circumstances in life that maybe your career on some level requires you to be of a certain value in order for you to sustain your part within the greater whole of what it is that you're doing. But always ask yourself if it's worth the emotional turmoil that you have to maybe endure when you're needing to keep up with said expectations. You know, what's also fascinating about the Libra constellation and Jupiter in Libra squaring Pluto in Capricorn, squaring the Mars and Cancer archetype there is that, what are our expectations? And how do we connect with those expectations? And how do we emotionally how do we feel when we try to adhere to those expectations that we've placed on ourselves, or other people have placed on us, or our situations that we've made choices in that have led us a certain way, that then become burdens that we feel because the inspiration is no longer there anymore that it was maybe a certain period of time ago. So, you know, this is also an opportunity to look at the emotional dynamics and attachments that we have to certain things, and how those are again, like I said, through those life cycles, outdated or no longer serving us in a way that nourishes our emotions. When I looked at the thread, pardon me, not the thread, but the thumbnail for this video, I on purpose chose the picture of what the thumbnail is, and it's a picture of a chair that's sitting in front of a fireplace, and it's got a very rustic type of experience. It's very organic, it's very natural, it's not synthetic in its process, it's not smooth and clean, there's some brickwork there. And the purpose was that the Capricorn archetype is and has got a lot to do with maturity. It's got a lot to do with our relationship to how we grow older in our lives and how we replace youth and excitement and spontaneity and inspiration for experience and maturity and wisdom. Okay? Capricorn is so much about that. So in our growth process, we notice that the things that we once maybe valued, Venus in Gemini, ruling the Libra archetype, once what we once valued, once what we found a sense of comfort in, once what we recognized as the process of our emotional well-being and what we use to nurture ourselves, and the flame, that was why the fire was over there. What we nurtured as that flame no longer works for us, and we have to kind of reevaluate and re-examine the psychological and emotional attachments that we've developed in relationship to those things. And as we kind of evaluate that process, we make necessary changes that can feel very uneasy for us again, like on a psychological and emotional level, because of the way that the limbic system works and how the hormones work and how the endocrine system works and how we measure security and safety in the Western world. So some really deep stuff to contemplate. And, again, coming back to Amy, I just see where there's writing, ready to pack up and road trip across the country. I know you're a reflector, so this is going to be interesting things. Definitely email us to let us know how that process works and what you see. Remember that you're here to kind of like sample stuff, yeah? But I'm really happy for you, and I'm really hoping that you enjoy your journey on that experience. Anyway, so coming back to this process of value and self-worth and what success means, really ask yourself, like, how much of your attachment to the world's conditioning has told you that this is what self-worth defines itself as, and is if you don't adhere to those things or follow those expectations, then you're not, of worth. And I feel like that's not true. It's about what we see ourselves through that really amplifies what we are. And if we see ourselves through a lens that measures it through something that is conditioned by limitation, then we're always going to perceive ourselves through that lens. Do you have any suggestions for healthy ways to process and bring up emotions? One thing that I wanted to share with you was that that Emotions version 2 video is something that I would highly recommend watching. Everybody, Disha, that would be something to check out. Otherwise, you can look at various forms. I mean, if anybody's in the chat there that's wanting to share their own point of view, or if anybody's in a qualified in the field of releasing emotions, please feel free to respond to Disha over there. But things like I recently was aware of myofascial technique, emotional release. Go Google that. Check out certain internet's full of different ways that you can allow emotional release to work. Jeff Brown, which is one of the guys that I like to follow, because he's really helping like men awaken themselves to the shame and the vulnerability and the conditioning around how it's supposed to be. Yeah, holotropic breath work is awesome. Yes, exactly. He was talking about, when we've got a lot of anger, we can express ourselves through just getting like a pillow or something soft and getting like an object, like a baseball bat or something, whatever, and just kind of like allowing yourself to just really hit this pillow and feel the emotions relative to where they were dented into you, before. Non-violent communication, active listening for couples or partners. I mean, I try to do that as much as possible. That's also a really, really fascinating non-violent communication technique. So yeah, there are tons out there, and thank you to everybody that's really sharing a lot of the suggestions over there. I hope that that's supporting you in some way, shape, or form, Disha. Okay, Summer is manifesting generator. Yeah. I'm super curious. Do you have anybody in your family that's a projector or any reflectors there? Emotional freedom technique using acupuncture points. That's amazing. Yes, the breath activates altered states and then following full expression. Yes, yes, that exactly. The breath, yeah, it's the truth. Yeah, like I've just got all wound up over there. It's like the breath honestly is the process. It's life. Without breath, we don't have the ability to download an app on our mobile telephone that somebody has told us to go and get. We don't have the opportunity to see the self-reflected consciousness that we have. And just things like that. Breath is where it actually begins and ends for us. And we take our first breath when we enter this earth, and we let go at the moment of our passing. And ultimately, what we do with those inhales and exhales is the spectrum. And this is what we get to observe in a very profound way. Yeah, I would check because I my daughter's a manifesting generator, my partner's a projector, and it's you people have just got so much energy, and you can manifest it as well. So it's funny. What else is there? Anybody else got some questions for me? That's I'm super happy to answer. So Carolyn was saying she was cleansing is happening as an affected system. My back is healing, not pleasant, but I feel being stabbed in the back in this and in past lives. Yeah, that's actually the truth. Like I read up that emotional like cysts and stuff can correlate to those experiences of on one level also, if I remember correctly, and I will check this out and I will write it in the comments if it's not the case, but it was something around the loss, like having to process a deep loss and needing to let go and allow the cycle of life to occur. Because so yeah, but I think that was maybe even related to the ovaries. So I don't know if that's the same thing for you, Carol. What else is there? Stellar, Moon and Capricorn at 17 degrees in the third house, having lots of issues with technology. Uranus and probably just the way in which things are being articulated and created for you. Uranus in the 10th house, Leo, too. Are they related? Yeah, I mean, with Uranus in the 10th house, I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't intuitively, I think that Uranus in the 10th house for you is just about, this is a lifetime in which you are literally here to decondition your sense of identity of how you see yourself. So you're deeply Uranian in your process, and the way that you validate yourself and what you sense as your sense of special destiny is what that Uranus in the 10th house is about. But with Pluto, your moon in Capricorn and it's in Capricorn in the third, it's around how do you re-identify yourself. I think that's something that's connected with that Uranus in the 10th. Okay, so let's have a look. Yeah, exactly. Breath of honesty, acceptance, release, and strengthening inner flame. Tapping addresses fight or flight and the sympathetic nervous system. Did a live, I'm assuming a live thing on it today. I wondered where my live post came from, and it was nice to see I'm aligned with the Leo North Node. Awesome, Penelope. I'm super happy for you. And that's really great to hear. I'm glad that you're able to offer people, whoever are looking for a sense of awareness around that. Okay. What about Uranus in the 12th house and Aquarius rising? So again, where is your Pluto in your charts? Where's your nodal axis? If you've got Uranus in the 12th house, it probably means that you're a soul that has come into this lifetime, with a deep need to, with Aquarius ruling your first house, you're obviously looking to look at life through a new lens, a new way of living. There's an opportunity here to really find a sense of connection with people and find inspiration in a way that's uniquely to yourself. We're all here to express ourselves uniquely, but for you, this is around really connecting with what is your own beat. It's like following your own beat. It's like recognizing what is your own purpose, what is your own way of expressing individuality and understanding it. Karmically speaking, there's probably a lot of trauma in past lives in which you've had to surrender a lot to experiences that have maybe traumatized your sense of, can you feel individuated in your life? Okay. Keenan was writing Gemini rising with Uranus and Sag in my 7th. Retrograde Saturn is currently conjunct natal Uranus. So I've recently gone through Saturn conjunct my Uranus. And what I noticed with that transit was that it was, Uranus is this energy that just does this, right? It's just like it's all over the place. It's chaos theory. And you take Saturn and you put it on top of it, and what you're basically doing is you're taking chaos energy and then saying, I'm gonna conform you. I'm gonna put you in a box and say you're not allowed to express yourself unless it's through my boundaries. And Uranus is like, no, dude, this doesn't work this way. So whenever Uranus and Saturn make a connection in the chart, you're always going to have a lot of unconscious suppression of past dynamics relative to this life or previous lives, that have basically been not resolved through not being able to know how to resolve those experiences at the time that they were occurring. That's why Uranus correlates to the individuated unconscious. So we have Neptune as the collective unconscious, Pluto as the nature of the soul itself relative to each of our desires and evolution. And when we look at Uranus, it's the individuated. So each of us has an unconscious or subconscious, and that subconscious is where we store all of the experiences that we cannot process relative to our Saturn cycles. So I would encourage anybody that's wanting to understand, whenever they have Saturn-Uranus transits, to observe and understand the conditioning of Saturn in their chart, to observe and understand the nature of the suppression or the trauma or the fragmentation or the experiences of suppressed emotions relative to Uranus in your chart. And then when you put those two together, you get the psychological and emotional complexity of what your soul carries relative to what it hasn't been able to process, karmic dynamics. It's really, really fascinating. And what was I going to say? So Saturn conjunct, Uranus for you, if I read this correctly, in your 7th house, is probably around the nature of relationships. You're probably working through relationships and what you feel is fair and what you feel is not fair. You might probably have to deal with a lot of feelings of where relationships have ended abruptly relative to feelings of not feeling or not knowing if what you were experiencing with the other was true or not. Was there any truth, and you're probably learning a lot about what is real and what's not real in relationship dynamics as well, honesty and stuff like that. So, fairness, equality. And what type of cosmology, what type of truth, what type of belief system do you want to use that supports your ongoing individuation process relative to relationships? Okay. So, Achilles' heart, there is no such thing. The nodes are always opposing each other. North node and south node in the same place. Do you mean, Achilles, that your north node is in Leo and the transiting north node's in Leo? Okay. All right, let's check out. What else is there? Tay 3005 and transiting Uranus is exactly square my natal Uranus and exactly conjunct my IC south node. So can I ask a question with that, Tay? Is that Uranus squaring your natal Uranus are you past the age of 50 or currently between the ages of 19 and 21? Okay, Achilles. Okay, so that was it, right? So your north node, like your north node or south node, is that? So you're going through a nodal return, and from how I understand nodal returns, what you're basically doing is just culminating a whole entire evolutionary cycle regarding the nature of the soul and all of the dynamics that we're evolving through that life cycle. So this is actually a pretty big time for you right now. But just to know, during this period of time, just watch the environment change for you. Watch how you're emotionally relating to your environment. what type of people come into your life right now that give you new direction. Pay attention to things that are being given to you in a way, or new things that are coming into your environment that are inviting you into new perspectives. Okay. Okay, so Tay, you were saying that you're 21. So this is probably in connection with your with your third Saturn square, right? So we're focusing on Tay's question around her Uranus square. So she's having a Uranus square, and also she's going through the third Saturn square. The third, or should I say, the Saturn is squaring itself, and it's the second Saturn square, and it's about to head its return in another 9 years' time. So what we're dealing with here is a soul that is coming into. So Tay, you're coming into a period of time in your life where you're learning how to liberate Uranus from the structure of the parents and the model and framework of how you were raised, and what type of how you internalized your mom and dad. So anybody that has gone through the ages of 21 to 29 will notice that that period of time for you predominantly is around becoming free from the home, becoming free from the restrictions of mom and dad saying this is how to be, that's how to be, and learning how to begin to differentiate your authority from the one that was conditioned onto you relative to what your parents thought were best for you when you were growing up. So for each of us, you're going through that cycle right now where you're beginning to become open more to what is available for you and what you can begin to see as potential for your life. And of course, you're super young, so this is an opportunity to just really give yourself a lot of freedom to explore and expand and to have fun, right? There's no need for seriousness right now, from my point of view, at least when I look at souls like that, because you only really begin to become serious post your Saturn return anyway. So this is an opportunity to really find your authority. Okay, so let's have a look. Natal North Node in the 11th, but now South Node is there. Okay, so you have your South Node conjunct your North Node. Right, so the same thing applies in that sense as well, where the transiting South Node will be moving. So transiting Aquarius, transiting South Node is on your Aquarius North Node. So you will be looking. So if you have a North Node in Aquarius, okay, you're looking at Uranus being the planet. So wherever Uranus sits in your chart, you're understanding the conditioning there. You're understanding that this is a lifetime where you're breaking down all of the sense of perceptions and ideas and perspectives that society have placed on you, that you have been internalizing as what you think you should be doing. All of that stuff is coming out. That's breaking down. You're becoming aware of what your own beat is in your life with the North Node in Aquarius, or the North Node in 11th house. So by having the nodes there, you're recognizing deep unconscious patterning of the past, of your upbringing, and how that has limited your ability to feel free in whatever it is that you seek to find freedom in. Okay? So let's have a look. So I'm a Capricorn rising. There was another person just before I read that. There was an interesting question that I want to see. Alexander was writing, Simon, how do you go about healing your emotional body from having been raised with conditional love, and when criticism is your strongest trigger? Honestly speaking, that is not something that happens overnight. And for me, I'm one of those people. So you've got to allow yourself. It all depends on the decision making and choice making that you allow yourself to have in your life. You know, sometimes it can be really, really insane to think that some of the choices that we should make in our lives to heal ourselves are completely radical against the thread of what society deems as normal. So as an example, if you come into this lifetime with deep suppression around your own emotional and heart needs not being met, or having those needs being met by, parents that never gave you the opportunity to fully express your creativity, and let's say, for instance, that was around buying like chocolates. One of the ways to actually heal that process is to allow yourself the freedom as an adult to go and relive that emotional trauma through going to the shop and actually going and buying all the different types of chocolates that you felt that you didn't have, so that the emotional body can have the imprint of allowing that self to actually have that experience. And again, you don't even have to eat them. It's just a process of being vulnerable enough and stripping away the layers of what has been conditioned on you to say that this is who you are. And criticism is a deep thing. It's got a lot to do with like layers of shame. You've got to process a lot of feelings inside of yourself of feeling rejected, feeling like you're not allowed to be loved for who you are and what you are. And it's a deep process. It's something that is, you've got to allow yourself, you've got to actively, with your mind, be present with yourself every single day, from my point of view, to give that compassion and self-acceptance, and actually talk to yourself, like say to yourself, like, I objectify, like the emotional imprinting is, or woundedness or scarring. Some of us think that healing the emotional body can just be done in a short period of time, but a lot of us have got deep samskaras. Sanskaras run deep within the psyche. It's something that occurs in multiple lifetimes. It's not something we have to go through many, many years of really going through deep emotional work, of wrapping and getting rid of those layers of criticism and blame and feelings of not being worthy. And I feel like a stepping stone in changing the direction for that is giving yourself a lot of attention around what that means to integrate it into your life. So if you like, there's a lot of workshops out there. I know that Jeff Brown talks about them in his books. And there's a specific that's called, if I highly encourage everybody to do this, that is wanting to learn about this stuff. So what I'm talking about here is, there's the armoring that we have relative to the world. The Virgo Pisces axis and the Virgo constellation has been deeply, or the Virgo archetype has been deeply conditioned around our feelings of self-worth being linked with just the way that we've measured ourselves. And I think that with the process of healing triggers around criticism, and that it comes down to, like I said, investigating in some certain workshops that are held by people that allow for deep emotional processing to occur, and going to those experiences and allowing yourself to be vulnerable enough to accept the woundedness that's inside of you, that has been traumatized, that has been damaged, that has been deeply affected by the parent, the internalized parent. Mark Jones talks about it in his book with The Soul Speaks, where, often we actually have to like literally kill, not physically, of course, but kill the parent in our psyche in order for us to step over the imprinting of that disempowered internalized dialogue that has happened. And when we get over that process, we can even, reach a state of forgiveness or to them for their own inability to recognize the limitations that have been, destroyed in their own psyche. And I'm not saying that you have to do that. I'm just saying that it's a very deep and very transformational process that I feel is something that is activated through going to certain events, workshops that correlate, that are so much about opening up the layers of emotional trauma and allowing yourself to see the disconfiguration that has occurred and be so intimately in love with the process of that disconfiguration, versus our natural psychological response and saying, that's wounded part of me, I don't want to see it. And really accessing the emotional release that occurs through that. I think that that's something that that is, that I hope to do in the future. Regarding certain conditioning that I've got in my own chart, because I carry a lot of that in my own chart. So, yeah. So I hope that kind of like steers you in a certain direction. I'd be happy to there's a video that I recently created called the Virgo Healing the Virgo Axis. I don't know if you watched it, Alexander, where we were trying to break down the neurological pathways that have been established in past dynamics, where we have crystallized this voice of, I'm not good enough. And especially for somebody, that a lot of us have got the Virgo archetype where we're trying to grow. And when we grow through failure, if accepting failure as a thing that is actually very good for us, as a way of actually activating our sense of allowing more of our courage to be present with us. That vulnerability is something that I feel is important. I see that you wrote about, could you elaborate on your journey so far? For me personally, it's about having the emotions come to the surface, and my body gets intensely triggered on an emotional level where my electrical system freaks out. So what I noticed is it's like you have to ground yourself a lot. I think grounding is a very essential part when you get triggered in that experience, allowing the emotions to move through. I don't know what your configuration is like in so much, so I can't really give you an intense, sharing. But for me, grounding has been something that has helped a lot, or reminding myself of that process. It doesn't work all the time because I feel like it's like a firecracker when they get traumatized with inside of myself. So yeah, but I have explored different modalities, and they have been kind of more emotion, like more just in my own way that I've been processing them. But I feel that later on in my life, when I do get more of an opportunity to explore more techniques that are rooted in recognizing where the damage or the scarredness of the psyche has occurred, I feel like there will be more progress. And that's something that I know that Jeff Brown works with a lot. So I highly encourage you to check out Jeff Brown's work. Yeah. So, Alma writes, I have my sun in Aquarius and Leo rising. Okay. So you're here to deeply, deeply be validated and manifested in your life. You're looking to express your individuality. You're looking to be highly creative, and you're looking to be recognized and seen in your life. That's your journey with that stuff there. Neptune and Pisces is a good energy for me to meditate on healing. Yeah, I totally agree. It's also amazing energy to just like get lost in all the wonderful, amazing, delicious foods that exist in the world. Yes, that's right, Elaine. Ellen, sorry. What you're writing about over there, listening what back pain was trying to tell me, my soul, deep physical pain as a soul healing, soul retrieval. Capricorn rules the bones and muscles. That's right. I think muscles is an Aries thing, but because Uranus is over there and Mars is there as well, yeah. Okay, one person asks, hi Simon, can you please tell me or help me understand Pluto in the 12th house effect in natal chart at this point in time? I honestly don't know what your chart looks like at this stage, but what I can say to you is that somebody that has got Pluto in the 12th house, there are a myriad of dynamics, but ultimately you are looking to deeply heal yourself in this lifetime. You're looking to recognize life through surrender, through culmination. You're looking for the deeper meaning in your existence. You're looking to understand what your life is about through recognizing transcendence. Transcendence is awareness. It's watching your life materialize and what comes in, and offering yourself in a way that is here in the physical. Okay, so Alexander, you were saying that you've got Saturn in Saturn in your fourth house, right? All of your karmic structure and crystallizations in the fourth house, and you're about to experience your Saturn return. When you say about your Saturn return, do you mean your Saturn return at the age of 50 or 29? I suspect 29. So North Node in Scorpio in the ninth house with Venus and Jupiter? Question mark. Do you mean? What do you mean there, Eddie? Do you mean as in your North Nodes in Scorpio in the ninth? Okay. So my suggestion to you, Alexander, is through this Saturn return cycle, like give yourself an intense break. Do not try to, in my opinion, do not try to like. This is a period of time with Saturn return. I highly encourage you to read the article that I have on my website that's called Understanding Your Saturn Return. It's so much about the process of coming back to the body, coming back to home. It's the lighthouse. It's the grounding mechanism. So a lot of the time we experience depression during that period of time, and it's because the consciousness is involuting on itself in order for a new set of dynamics to occur. So this is a time where you're coming back home. Okay, so this is a reflection period. Okay. So, Eddie, yeah, right. So North Node in the ninth house. Well, if you have your North Node in Scorpio in the ninth house and your Jupiter and Venus is over there, you're definitely looking at healing a lot of your psychological experiences of abandonment around your own personal truth and what you value in your truth. You've probably experienced a lot of things in your life where you've had to be very confrontational around what people say and how you relate to them. And this is an opportunity for you to really know that in this lifetime, you're here to confront the truth and understand the truth in a way that is relative to yourself and what that means for you, and uncover the deepest unconscious motivations that are rooted not only in your own personal perspective, but in other people's as well, and to feel comfortable and secure in knowing that whatever it is that you're seeking in this lifetime is going to be deeply transformative. You're probably somebody that's into occult knowledge in some way, or if you haven't, you probably will find it deeply amazing to you. So any esoteric teachings, as an example, things like Manly P. Hall, the teachings of Walter Russell, and stuff like that. Okay, I know somebody who has North Node in Leo, but he is afraid of being creative. It's so unknown to him. He has the Sun, Moon, Mercury square the nodes too. What do you think his return can offer him? The thing is, though, is that when we're dealing with somebody that's got a North Node in Leo and has got skip steps, Moon, Sun, and square the nodes, this is a soul that is probably going to have to focus a lot on feelings of acceptance, feelings of emotional dynamics in which the parents maybe reflected not as much warmth and comfort and love that they maybe would have wanted. They've got to examine the nature of their own feelings of detachment and isolation that they've felt as a way of surviving in the world relative to the fear of being rejected. So I think this is an opportunity to really recognize that creativity comes through us being able to love ourselves first and what we are here to represent and validate in ourselves. Each of us comes with a beautiful creative process. It is our job in this lifetime to recognize what that creative process is, if we're fortunate enough. If we've got some things that unfortunately are deeply traumatizing, then, we've got a lot of work to do before we can even get there. And unfortunately, a lot of the world has got that process, so that's why on one level, even though I sit here today and I share this with you, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have a mind and have a psychological and emotional dynamic that can, on some level, relate to the world, and to be able to experience and express my consciousness in a way that I can see reflected back at me through this. That's something that is what I would consider so much to be so abundant with, because it allows me to experience the framework and that life can offer through interacting with your children, being able to sustain a certain lifestyle in a way that is enriching, and just to have that is a gift on its own. You know what I mean? And it honestly puts me in a state where I'm so comfortable just sitting here and chatting the whole day to people and doing these types of things, because it's yeah, I don't know. So coming back to the Leo thing, I feel like we all have this beautiful creative process, and it's a beautiful gift to be able to recognize it, even if it's so unique. And I think that with the South Node in Aquarius, we get this opportunity to really break free from a lot of the conditioning that we have placed on ourselves through society, through what the world thinks we should do, what we think we should do, what our parents have told us they think we should do, and recognize that some of us have different creative processes, Okay, so let's have a look. Simon, could you tell me what to expect about the meeting of my natal Mars in Cancer with the actual Mars opposition? if you have Mars in Cancer and Mars is in Cancer at this stage, wouldn't you be having a Mars return? Okay. So just asking that question, unless I'm reading that incorrectly. Somebody else strikes, I think it's Phoenix, North Node in Gemini in the 12th house with Chiron in Taurus. And your question, what would you want to know with the question? By the way, okay, let's have a look. Would you say you understand your parents fully, Simon? What don't you understand about them? Well, it's interesting because I'm assuming that question's directly at me, right? Um, I would say that I spend quite a great deal of time trying to understand my parents because I have a Pluto 10th house. I have a lot of those things. I feel emotionally disconnected from them. Part of it's because of my own trauma. Part of it's because that's part of what I'm learning here in this lifetime. I find it difficult to try and relate to them in some way, shape, or form. But on some levels, that's maybe part of what I'm supposed to see. I don't know yet at this stage. I don't feel like I fully understand them, no, but I feel like I have a really good opportunity through the different modalities of techniques like astrology and human design, as an example, to recognize what they are and what they're not. But, in terms of like understanding parents and stuff and, living with them for the period of time that I did and experiencing him as an adult, yeah, there are some unfortunate things that I don't like, and I suppose we all probably in some way, shape, or form have our own things, our own shadow. Yeah. So I hope that answers that question in that sense. Not really. Yes, maybe 80%, 70%, I would say. Okay. Yeah, validation for Leo, but validation in the sense of like, what is your creative process? Like my daughter, for instance, one of them, she needs to eat food with sound, and it's not something that you would naturally find in a social situation where a 4-year old is allowed to have headphones while they're eating their food, as an example. But that's her creative process. She eats her food really, really like calmly and relaxed when she's got music in her ears, and that's how she operates. That's validation. For me, I'm somebody that needs to eat my food in a calm environment, and that's something that we validate in our own home. We've all got different ways in which we process material, and how is that creative process operating for you? So that's what I mean about validation. JP was writing something along the lines of Pluto 29 degrees in Leo in the 6th house. This eclipse will be brutal on my health or job. Is that the way to read this? I honestly think that is part of the past. I feel like it's really important for us to become detached from any kinds of doomsday prophecies. I don't know what's going to happen for you, JP, but what I can suggest to you is that if you have Pluto at 29 degrees in the 6th house Leo, your soul has come here to really, really, really go through the transition of that final degree of Leo. You are looking to come into this lifetime and to really heal the deepest parts of your own sense of validation around what are you here for? What is your sense of destiny? And yes, you might have an eclipse that's happening in your 6th house, and you might have to reevaluate the ways in which you create uh, your routines in your life that are healthy for you, your food routines, maybe, those things. So that probably will bring a lot of illumination around that for yourself, okay?